Welcome to MMA Fancast. My name's Luke Payson, and I'm honored to have first-time guest on the show, an undefeated, highly ranked amateur light heavyweight MMA fighter, Nasty Nick Nash. Welcome to the show, Nick.
Thank you, Luke, for having me. I appreciate it.
I'm honored to have you on the show. Really excited. You got a big fight coming up for 247 Fighting Championships, Brawl in the Berg 17, July 15th at Monroeville Convention Center. But let's so we're going to get to that because it's a big deal. You're going to have a lot of eyes on you. You're going to be coming into enemy territory with a local guy who's coming off a great knockout. So it's a lot of excitement. Well, let's kind of go back. I'm going to talk about the fact that you're 5-0. Tapology has you ranked number 3 in all of the Midwest in amateur light heavyweight, and that's out of 297 fighters. So you're an absolute stud coming into this. Well, let's back up. What got you into MMA before you were 5-0 and on this streak? What led you to start training in it, and kind of what brought you to your first MMA fight?
Yeah, so I've been a lifelong athlete. I've played football since I was really young, baseball, basketball. I've tried every sport. I've been in competitions since I was as little as I can remember. But when it came to MMA, I really came in with the Conor McGregor era. He really brought me in. I was about a sophomore in high school. He was making this big wave that he was. And I just fell in love with the sport. I studied it religiously. I looked up every YouTube video there was on everyone, did as much research as I could. And really, it was the Joe Rogan podcast. I was watching it, and they were just talking about how wrestling was the best base. And so that following year, my junior year, I started wrestling in high school. At that point, I was a heavyweight. So I wrestled heavyweight my junior and senior year. And then the end of my senior year, I found Victory. I luckily live right down the street from Victory, which is one of the best gyms in Ohio for amateurs, I believe. It will be for pros soon once a lot of guys start going pro. But it was like just destiny. It was cool. I clicked with all the guys. I wrestled 1 year at Akron on their club team. While I was training MMA, I was just doing a mix, mixing in MMA and wrestling at Akron for their club team. I wrestled 235 there. And it was just a progression to get to where I'm at now, like a weight loss journey, training, like wrestling. I started with wrestling. Like I said, transitioned to MMA. I kind of did a mix of both. But really just fell in love with the sport and the progress I was making. I was an All-American at Akron, NCAA All-American. So I progressed, just kept getting better and really committed to my training and just worked really hard. And now I'm here.
Yeah, and here you are, just an incredible run. Thanks for giving us the feedback. You mentioned Victory MMA out of Ohio, great gym. Glad it's something that not only has been great for you, but you said other fighters, and also it is exciting. One of the things that I've benefited from doing MMA Fancast now 3 years is to see gyms, all over the place, kind of that aren't well known, right? But that are doing a good job developing talent. And when those fighters go pro and stay in the gym, we've seen it from Gorilla House. We've seen it from some of the more local Pittsburgh that I get to see on MMA through this show, but also for 247. Obviously, the Mat Factory have done it for years, and a bunch of others. The shop's starting to do it. So it's exciting because what you're talking about is in a couple of years, Victory MMA might have a whole stable of pro fighters. So it's super cool. Let's talk about the fact that you've been pretty busy. 5 fights. Actually, there's a 6th fight, but it was a no contest. So that's a little hard to rate or judge. But you've had 6 fights in just the last 2 years. And every single one of them has been a finish by submission win. Did you go into MMA? I would assume by watching Conor, you like the striking and a lot of that, kind of fancy flamboyant stuff. What has led to you being an absolute 100% submission machine?
Yeah, in reality, a lot of my fights start on the feet. I'd say my first fight and my last fight was a lot of wrestling, but I have no problem standing up. Like a lot of my fights, I've stood up, and my game plan is just to outwill you. like whatever that means. If it's stopping your wrestling, if it's standing up, if I'm taking you down, I mean, whatever I can do to wither you. I mean, I just want to break you before I break. Like that's my game. And usually they're just looking for a way out. And I love jujitsu. I fell in love with jujitsu. The striking was cool to watch. I'm not an amazing striker yet. I want to be at some point, but I'm very confident in my grappling, my wrestling, my jujitsu. And I don't want to give anyone brain damage or anything. I would, give them a way out if they want an easy way out.
Well, that is true for people that don't always know. The submission game is much more forgiving. An opponent can lose the fight, tap out, and be completely fine. And that isn't always the case with the striking game, but obviously that's part of MMA. Well, that is super exciting. Let's get to you taking on Jeff Magan, who is 3-1. I got to watch him live, have a great knockout in round one only about a month and a half ago. But what made you want to drive in about 2.5 hours into enemy territory to take on sort of a local guy while you're on this incredible 5-0 run? What's exciting about this matchup for Brandenburg 17 for you?
Yeah, so all my fights have been through Cage Thunder. They've all been at the same venue. I don't want to say I got complacent because every fight camp I've looked to work harder and improve in some way. And I've been really excited to learn and keep on doing better. But it was just the matchmakers reached out to my coach, and it was a good opportunity to actually get that feel on the road, because once you turn pro and you start going to all these shows, and especially in the UFC, I mean, you're bouncing around every state. So you got to get used to being in a hostile crowd. And the matchup just really excited me. I mean, he's a very accomplished wrestler, and it seems like he has great stand-up from what the videos I have seen. So I respect him as an opponent, and I'm really looking forward to the challenge. I just chase something that's going to really excite me and challenge me. And I'm just looking for the hardest fights I can get before I turn pro and just get a taste of everyone as well. I'm an amateur. Just feel everyone and just do everything I can, to get to the next level.
Well, Nick, I mean, I think that shows that your mindset's at the right place, but also your coaching and your coaches have given you that right attitude, because we see it a lot that amateur really is the time to take on the toughest opponents, or at least challenge yourself by styles or by matchups that when you get pro, you're going to have to be challenged by a whole bunch of other people. So it's great that you have that mindset. It's a really, really exciting matchup. I mean, for me, it's one of those. It's a amateur title level. I know it's not they already have 2 title fights on this card. This card is absolutely stacked.
It actually is for a title now.
Oh, well,
yeah, there was a big mix up about it. Like,
okay.
I don't deal with the promotion at all. My coach deals with the promotion, and my coach told me it was for a title. And then when they posted the picture, I seen it and contacted my coach, and I was like, "It's for a title, right?" And my coach was like, "Yeah." And then he reached out to him, and they're like, "No, it's not for a title." So like, I guess there was a big mix-up, but they just told me today it is for a title, so it's the title to go.
Well, I appreciate that we could clear the air. That's perfect. This is for a belt. This is for a title, according to what we got. So that actually is 3 amateur title belts. There's a 135, a 145, and now a 205 amateur title belt up for grabs. It's an absolutely stacked card. That doesn't even talk about the pro fights. It's a great promotion. I know you've only fought for one promotion. I think it's a great mindset to be the guy that's like new to the venue and coming into a hostile area. You mentioned at a pro level that fights take place all over the place in different states, but they also take place out of the country, right? We've seen that too, whether it's Fight Island, or they were just up in Canada, which isn't too big out of the country, but Brazil, we saw when Stipe went down, my favorite heavyweight fighter, Stipe, went down to Brazil, and it's interesting because for him, he talked about how he liked fighting in Brazil and the enemy more than in Cleveland, because when he defeated over in Cleveland, there was more pressure because it was his hometown. So there's a lot to say for having that mindset. For you, are you in the mindset of you're definitely one more fight, get a win, get the belt, and go pro? Or is that a conversation that's very skill based between you and your coaches? Basically, they'll tell you when you switch from being amateur to pro, because I've seen fighters do it, two different ways. One is they have a very set game plan, and the other is they kind of wait till their coaches set that up.
Yeah, that's the plan. Me and my coaches have talked already. As long as I win this one, then we're gonna go pro. We just think that's the best move for us. I mean, I've fought in everyone they put in front of me. Like I've fought, the Division II, Division III All-American wrestlers, D1 football players. Like I've fought everyone I can. The toughest guys they put in front of me. And obviously at my gym we bring in a lot of guys. Jeff Hughes is one of them, an old ex-UFC fighter. He's kind of taken me under his wing, and really, been coaching me up and helping me a lot. Davis Horacio is one of them. He's a pro middleweight. So we get a lot of pros in there. We get good looks from everyone, and we just feel confident in my abilities. I feel very confident in myself. I've put in a lot of work. I mean, the last 4 years, I've just dedicated my life to the sport, and just worked incredibly hard. And I'm just confident. I believe in my abilities and what I can do.
Well, that's exactly where you need to be 4 years in. 4 years ago, you were 18. Now you're 22. I think we've seen this. The Dana White Contender Series has been wonderful to see. Pros that are like 6-0 or 8-2, that type, and they're either pros. I've been watching it now for years. Either pros that are kind of later in life that are putting together a good run, which is exciting. Mid-30s type range, but more and more and more we're seeing. It used to be pretty rare to make it into the UFC before 25, and now that's becoming much more common. And obviously, you're not even a pro yet, but to be able to go pro at 22-ish, 23 sets yourself up to be younger by the time you go to the next level. So that is really exciting. So for you, you've kind of made your major case and major plan that you're testing yourself. Jeff Magan is a great test. You've scouted him. You guys are both big physical guys. 205 division is obviously an incredibly exciting division. But are you going to give a prediction? Do you want to give a prediction, or do you just want to kind of leave it at the fact that you're using this as a measuring for whether or not you go pro next, which is still a pretty big statement?
Yeah, I mean, I don't predict any of my fights. I mean, I just try to look at it from a technical aspect. I know he pushes forward a lot. He's very aggressive, and that's what my style is too. So, I mean, it should be exciting regardless. And it's really just like all my fights. It's just I make it a battle of wills. So as long as it's just whoever's willing to fight to the end. I mean, I'll die in there. I don't care. I mean, I give everything I have. Every practice day, every day. I mean, I give everything I have. So I'm looking forward to it.
Well, I think this is a great example of the matchup of high quality fighters. And I know Jim Mooney, the head matchmaker for 247, your coach has been working with him and other people from 247. Really, fights can sell themselves, right? You and Jeff are great talents, got a lot of skills and ability. We've also seen the fact that sometimes in a fight's career, you might fight somebody that's high level in amateur, fight him again in pro outside of the UFC. And then we've even seen sometimes people fight again within the UFC. We saw that with Joanna Champion. She was fighting the Bullet, I think her 4th or 5th time, because they had met when they were still fighting in Russia. So there's a lot of examples of when you come up with really a high level talent, you end up kind of seeing the same people. So it's a super bright future. And I'm just honored to have you on the show. I always like to follow somebody's career. So it sounds like I'm getting into following your career at the perfect time to be able to not only see what happens in this fight, hopefully bring you back on afterwards to talk about it, but also going forward to be able to continue to follow you and your career and the Victory MMA guys as you kind of look to increase. I really appreciate you taking the time to come on. Before we go, I do want to say, because I know it's a bit of a drive for people to come in. So for those that are not driving in to Monroeville, they can watch you on the pay-per-view for 247fighting.com, or they can download the app 247 Live. Either way, this is just a shout out to remind them to make sure that they select you if they are going to get the pay-per-view, to select your name. That way you get credit for bringing in more eyes to the show. So that's something I always want to throw out there. If your people are watching this, It'll be absolutely incredible. Monroeville Convention Center is a really fun, big venue, and you're going to get a new experience from what you're used to. So super excited for you. Thanks so much for coming on the show. I cannot wait to see what nasty Nick Nash is going to do at the 205 division against Jeff Magan, 247 Fighting Championships, Bronneberg 17.
Cool.
Thanks
Thank you
so
much.
much,
I appreciate
brother.
you having me.
Hey, I
Yes, sir.
appreciate
Thank
you coming on. All right. See you live July 15th. Thanks again.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
You got it.